This fight was not exciting at all. To be honest, I rathered watching the UFC fights tonight with Stephen Thompson and stuff like that. But as far as this fight goes, what is there to talk about? It's just a classic matchup of a long, lanky guy, fighter type, fighting much smaller, much more athletic, and much better boxer overall. Um, Callum Smith was a pretty decent guy. He was a pretty good opponent coming in, especially in the early rounds. He was a tall guy at 6'3" compared to Canelo's 5'8", much taller. He had the reach advantage, I think, again by a huge margin. I think it was up to 3 or 4 inches per arm. I think it was a total almost 8-inch reach advantage. Just a tall, long guy, and all he really has is a little bit of head movement, a little bit of footwork, but it's a very good jab and a very good right hand. That's what he ended up building his whole career off of was just being the longer guy, long, lanky, and very long out of distance, long shots, mostly jab right hand shots. He does have pretty decent hooks. He has other shot selection, but other than that, man, he's a jabber. He's a jabber. He's a right hander. He's a sticker, a mover, and he can normally do that to lesser opponents, but whenever you're having one of the pound for pound best opponents ahead of you, despite the reach advantage, despite the height advantage, despite being much longer, having a great jab, he couldn't apply he couldn't keep Canelo off of him, really. For what worked in the first round or two. I honestly thought he won maybe up to the first 3 rounds. I thought it was very competitive for the first 3 rounds, but after that, it was just not really competitive at all. It was not interesting at all. Nothing was exciting. Um, the pace was the same the whole fight. As the longer guy, as the lanky guy, as the guy with the good jab, your whole thing is to make sure you control the pace of the fight. That's how you kind of win fights. It's off of not fighting as the longer guy, honestly. Um, Whereas Canelo, as a shorter guy, as a guy with the smaller reach and stuff, he's supposed to come in and promote the fight. That's how he wins the fight, and that's how he gets the timing back on his side is to bring the fight to make it more of a brawl, to win all the boxing exchanges and just to kind of outclass Canelo Smith, make it more of a high-paced fight. That's what the pressure fighting is all about. It's about a good pace, good tempo, not really caring about what your opponent's trying to set, the timing that you're trying to set, and that's what was accomplished by Canelo Alvarez. And it was just for the fact that Canelo's smarter, Canelo's faster, and he has a lot more moves. He has a lot of more tools and things to work with. He's great with his timings as far as offensive moves and defensive. It was a Canelo night past the second or third round for the whole fight. It was not an exciting fight at all. I would not want to see the rematch of this. I think that Callum Smith, although he was a good fighter, a good jabber, a good distance fighter, although he was a good fighter, this is the pinnacle of his career, and he's a good number five guy. That's what he is. He's not really gonna be a superstar. He's never gonna be a superstar because he's just too limited in what he can do. He's not athletic enough. Despite the longness to him, but despite the reach, despite every advantage he can have in the book, he's just not athletic enough. He doesn't have good enough head movement. He doesn't have good enough footwork. So because of all those reasons, he's going to be topped out as like this top five guy. He's never going to fight anyone, even close to the level of Canelo in terms of skill and in terms of what he brings as a fighter and stuff. This is going to be his career defining moment as just another Canelo opponent. You know what I mean? And it's going to stay like that. He's a good fighter. You could just tell. He's a classic limited fighter. You know what I mean? Canelo Alvarez. It was his fight from the second round, from the third round on. Even in all judges' scorecards, he ended up winning pretty much almost every round because he had better pace, he had better movement, he had better defense, and he just put the pressure on Smith. Smith didn't know how to deal with the pressure when it came to that elite level of being able to go through all the jabs that you have, to go through all the right hands, not really have that affect that, not really have that set or command the pace of the fight at all. Go through any sort of power shot that Callum Smith had. Every time Callum Smith landed power shots, it just it wasn't good power shots. He doesn't have too much power. There was nothing exciting really about Callum Smith. You know what I mean? That's the whole thing. Every point of the fight was to try to make the unexciting, long, lanky, tactical fighter rob the excitement from the fans. Rob the sort of any sort of devastating knockout potential. To just stall a fight. He's a fight staller. Callum Smith, he's just another fight staller. You know what I mean? He's another jabber. He's another stick and move pot shotting guy. He has a couple of power shots here and there, but nothing too crazy, nothing too great about it. And it was just the same fight over and over again. So how is my analysis going to be even any good if it was just the same thing in round one as it was in round 12? The same moves, the same pace, nothing different. You know what I mean? I'm almost just as, I'm not really disappointed in the fight. I can't really be disappointed in these guys because they're such great athletes overall, and it is very hard to get to their level overall, just kind of understanding, at a higher level what these guys possess and the certain timing and the fluidity and all that stuff, the speed that these guys possess. But overall, it was just the same thing in round one up through the 12th round. It was nothing different. It was just a Canelo fight. Nothing special. It wasn't a Canelo and someone else. It wasn't a Canelo and Triple G. It wasn't a Canelo and Floyd Mayweather. There was no opponent. It was just Canelo steadily winning the fight by pressure and hard shots and good defense and good offense. And that's all it was. It was a decision fight. I was a little upset that I didn't see Canelo have the knockout late in the round. I think a lot of me and a lot of other professionals and good expert analysts, I think we thought that Canelo was going to score a late stoppage in this fight, but it just kind of never came through. Callum had a good chin. He was game the whole time. He was strong the whole time, even when he was hurt, which made the fight almost all the more boring. You know what I mean? It was just a boring, boring fight. You know what I mean? We knew exactly what was going to happen. It was going to be either a lopsided decision by Canelo Alvarez, which it was. Do I care to see it again? Again, no. I don't care to see this fight ever again. I don't think Callum Smith is ever going to get to this level again. I think Callum Smith is going to end up uh, being one of those professionals that was previously undefeated, that was kind of promoted in this fight, but because he lost in dramatic fashion to Canelo and presented absolutely zero problems that Canelo Alvarez hasn't solved before many, many times over. I don't think we're going to be seeing too much of Callum Smith. I think he's going to be a prelim fighter. I think he's going to be a co-main event fighter. I think he's going to be almost a non-existent fighter. Maybe eventually he can have some sort of rebirth, but from what I'm seeing with the tools and skills that this man possesses, probably not. He is just he's not athletic enough to do it. He's not smart enough to improve his game, and he doesn't have enough time. He's just a decent mover with a good jab and good right hand and a couple of power shots here and there, but that's all he's going to be. How many of those types have we seen before? Just a good but not great outside fighter. That's every other fighter that fights Canelo. You know what I mean? We don't want to see Rocky Fielding fight Canelo again. You know what I mean? Who wants to see another version of Rocky Fielding? I don't know. You know what I mean? But the one that at least Rocky Fielding had the goal to lose and to go out on his shield and to get knocked out like a warrior. This guy just kind of stayed on and plodded throughout the whole thing. His footwork was nothing special, at all. The way he would circle, the speed he possessed as far as his feet, his footwork, the patterns he exhibited, he had no advanced footwork patterns at all. It was all traditional long range lanky type patterns. It was nothing special in his footwork. His head movement was good, but not great. Nothing special possessed with his head movement or upper body movement. Because his head movement and his footwork were good, not great. He had also a good not great type of rhythm. Nothing was special about this guy. The best two things about his game plan was the jab and the right hand. And Canelo, after fighting, many of these guys, he's going to know how to deal with a jab and a right hand and just okay footwork. You know what I mean? If you don't possess anything special, I would understand if Callum Smith could eventually have some sort of footwork advantage. I could understand if he could have some sort of head movement advantage. I could understand if he could maybe get his shots a little more precise, start getting a higher knockout percentage, but he's not. He's as maxed out as you could get for that long lanky type. We're not seeing anything in addition to Callum Smith right now or ever. I really doubt we're going to see some sort of career rebirth from this guy. He's going to end up just being a good fighter that no one knows about. That was just another Canelo fighter that went the distance with Canelo. You know what I mean? Other than that, it was a pretty boring fight. It was a lame fight. I don't want to see it again. Canelo proved to me nothing really changed overall. He's a good fighter, but he already knew he was coming in with the skill advantage. He knew he was coming in with the experience advantage, with the mental edge, with the speed advantage, the hardcore, you know, power advantage. He had all the advantages in the world, and one of the reasons why I thought this was a boring fight is because he just didn't push the knockout pace. He just pushed enough pace to win the fight, and that's it. You know what I mean? So it was, to me, it was nothing special at all. If you didn't watch it, you don't even need to watch the highlights. Just know that it was another Canelo fight with him winning at the end of it. And, against a no-name guy, nothing special at all. Um, if you were smart, you would have been watching the UFC Fight Night instead of this. You know what I mean? You would have been focusing more attention on Stephen Thompson, how he was going to deal with the threat of Geoff O'Neill, rather than how Canelo's going to deal with the threat of Callum Smith, this unknown guy, this sluggish guy with sluggish footwork, slow footwork, uh, not just slow footwork, but repetitive, the same footwork, predictable footwork. Nothing was new. This was the same thing. He wasn't even trying to go on a limb. He wasn't even trying to win any sort of cool points or, you know, he was just really trying to survive. Two things. Callum Smith was trying to survive and try to prove that he could go the distance with Canelo, and that's what he did. He proved those two things. He just didn't prove the fact that